So time is 6:03. We'll now go into executive session for potential litigation pursuant to RCW 423110 II.
25 minutes.
25 minutes. All right, if you have any citizen comment requests, those need to be turned in shortly so we can determine if the time for speaking needs to be reduced in order to accommodate all the requests this evening. We'll begin in about 2 minutes.
Celebration for the final looks like starts at 5 o'clock. Hey, hello. How come you got a degree?
Okay, I'll go ahead and call the meeting back to order at 6:32. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Mayor Schwartz. All council are present.
Thank you. Councilmember Martinez, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening? Does any council member wish to move any agenda items to a business item for individual discussion and vote? If you don't, I would accept a motion to approve the agenda as is.
I'll move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, first up this evening, we have a presentation of our Moses Lake High School Mavericks WIAA 4A state softball champion team, who are all seated here before you. I will read this brief statement and recognize the players. If you guys want to come up, we'll get a picture with you. This team, led by 6 outstanding seniors, put together an unbelievable season, going 19-1, which I think is a pretty good record for softball, right? And capturing Moses Lake's first WIAA 4A state slow pitch title. We defeated 4-time defending state champions Chiawana High School in the championship game by a score of 13-3. This team worked extremely hard all season to ensure that they were playing their best softball at the right time and dominated their way through the state tournament. A very special group of girls and a tremendous accomplishment. And first, I would like to recognize coaches Mike Hofheinz, Jake Berthoff, Bob Richardson, Emerald Albert, and Jasmine Rose, and your players, Avani Avalos, Kylie Barnett, Josie Karlstrom, Aliana De Leon, Avery Getzinger, Lila Johnson, Samantha Kling, Sophia LaGrave, Alina Lopez, Kennedy Lyons, Amaya Martinez, Maya Martinez, Hayden Morris, Addison Reffitt, Anissa Valdez, and Ellie Vela. I apologize if I mispronounced any of your names, but a quick round of applause for these ladies. And if you would, please come up here and stand in front of the council so we can get a photo with you.
Hold on.
Awesome. Thank you, Doug. And hold on, before you go, I have a little token for each one of you. Thank you. Congratulations, you guys.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much for bringing the team. Yeah, thank you. And before you ladies leave, I did want to just make a couple more comments. So one of our council priorities is community visioning and community pride. And so it's very important for me to have groups such as yours come and be recognized, because as it says on your shirts, we are one, right? And so we're all part of this community. And when you go home tonight, for those of your parents who aren't here, I will thank those parents who are here directly. Thank you very, very much for raising great daughters and for putting in all of the work and dedication it takes to do that. And please thank all of your parents for doing the same. We very much cherish our community here, and we cherish our accomplishments. So again, congratulations, thank you, and get home and study. Councilmember Martinez has something also. Hold on.
It's okay.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I didn't want to steal their thunder, but our girls or women's high school soccer team made it to the playoffs to state, so.
We will be keeping an eye on
Yes,
that.
yes.
Awesome, thank you.
Oh, and football.
That's right. All right, next up, we have citizen communications. The council values free expression of all points of view as an important democratic process. Each person is allowed a maximum of 5 minutes. When you are called to speak, please begin by stating your name and city of residence for the record. And we have just one this evening. Oh, sorry, I apologize. We'll move on right past that then. Next up, we have, looks like a public hearing. So is that what this is? Okay, thank you. Regarding our budget ordinance. So this is our first public hearing, and I'll turn it over to Madeline Prentice.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Debbie, if you could pull up the PowerPoint slide for me, please. Oh, sorry. There we go. So this evening, if you go to the next page, just a quick reminder of the timeline for the budget. Tonight, of course, will be the first public hearing on the 2026 annual budget. And then tonight, we'd also like to potentially adopt the 2026 property tax levy resolution. That will be the next item in the agenda. On the 25th, we will hold the final public hearing for the annual budget and do the adoption of the 2026 annual budget. So that is the timeline at this point. Next page. So just some major highlights. So the budget funds all of the existing municipal services that the city offers and provides to our citizens. It supports and implements the city council's top priorities as were identified in the council workshops that we did earlier this year. It does have a approximately $1 million deficit in a $41 million general and street fund. We do have a healthy reserve, so we are able to absorb that deficit. We're working very hard to reduce it even more, but currently it does have a $1 million deficit. It does meet the city's reserve policies. It also increases, again, the reserves in our rainy day fund by $250,000. And it funds a new strategic opportunities fund with the proceeds from sales of a couple of properties that we had this year. Next page. So here's the total proposed budget, the revenue piece for it. So the final proposed budget of revenue is $118,300,617. That's citywide. The preliminary budget was $118,245,315. And so there was a difference of $55,302, and that's an increase in the revenue. And if you go to the next page, that increase was essentially from the state shared revenue program. So each year they estimate what our per capita estimated amount for the state shared revenues will be. That's done early. And then I look at that later, and it did increase slightly for the state shared revenues that we receive. So that $55,000 increase came from those state shared revenues. Next page. And then the next few slides, and I know it's very difficult to see on this screen, I apologize. The next few slides are the actual funds broken down individually. So on this particular page, you can see the general fund and all of the departments that are comprised in the general fund, and the from 23 actuals, 24 actual revenues, the 25 budgeted revenues, the forecasted revenues for 25, and then our proposed 2026 budget. So for the general fund, our proposed 26 budget revenues is $39,020,054, and that's a decrease of 1.3% over the 25 budget. With the street fund included in the general fund, the total proposed budget is $40,850,000. And then of course you can see that our proposed rainy day fund will increase by $287,000. That's the $250,000 that will be transferred plus the interest that we anticipate we'll receive in that fund. Next page. The next page is the same, similar, but it's going through the operating, meaning our water, wastewater, our tourism, grants and donations, the various other operating funds, and then our enterprise funds, which are water, wastewater, sanitation, stormwater, ambulance, and the airport. So I'm not going to go through each one of these figures unless you want me to. Okay. Next page. The next page is the internal service funds, which is our information technology, our equipment rental, and our building maintenance funds, and then our capital improvement funds. The thing to note here is that you can see on our capital improvement funds, it did increase significantly from 2025 budget of 17.9 million to proposed 26 of 28.054. And this amount is, of course, comprised of all of the items in the CIP that you had opted earlier this year. Next page. The next page is our risk management and employee benefit, meaning our unemployment compensation fund, and then of course our debt service fund. And at the very bottom of this page, you see that our revenues, there's that $118,300,617 for 2026, total citywide revenues. Are there any questions about the revenues? Hearing none, we'll go to the next page. So here are the all funds expenditures. A little bit better news on this one. You can see that the preliminary budget, we had 127,443,942. The final budget is 125,431,949. So we decreased it by just over $2 million. And if you go to the next page, the biggest change, that 2 million, was in the capital expenditures. So in the preliminary budget, we had a preliminary estimate for water capital construction of just over 5.4 million. And when we finally got the final CIP budget done, that amount dropped to 3.57 million. So that's where the biggest portion of that 2 million came from. There were some other operating funds that were reduced by 105,000. Part of that was the lodging tax, the LTAC funds, the award amounts, and that was offset by increases in the homeless services budget for the MOTS contract. And then the general fund reduction was $46,000, and that's mainly a result of the decreases in the employee benefits that we had higher amounts in the preliminary budget versus what the final amount came in at. So those are the decreases that we saw for the expenditures. Next page. And again, here on the same page, and again, I apologize, I didn't realize this would be so small. You can see here the general fund expenditures and the fund balance. So again, for 26, we've got for the general fund, 39,444,000 of proposed expenses. And with the general fund, with the street fund, that amount is 41,815,000. And that's where you see, if you go over to the fund balance, we start the general fund and street fund combined, a beginning fund balance estimated at 12.1 million. There's where we see that nearly $1 million deficit, that 965,000 that we'll be using of fund balance leaves us with a projected ending fund balance of 11.2 million.
And also just a reminder, we're using $1 million of ARPA funds in 2026 to help with the general fund. So you see the $965,000 deficit there. Well, it's really closer to 2 million if you can count the fact that we're using ARPA, the one-time, which is a one-time funding source, to help the general fund.
Okay. Next page. The next page is the other operating expenditures and the fund balance for those. So for other operating funds, that balance, and this, I apologize, this does still include the street operations fund too. I did not take that out of here. So that total is 12.2, but we need to take out 2.3 for the street funds because that's included up above. And then the fund balance there is 10.4 million for beginning and an ending fund balance of 5.7. That is mainly because we're proposing or planning to use all of the ARPA money in 26, as well as we're proposing and planning to use the transportation benefit money and move that to the capital funds and take that ending fund balance down significantly. And then you can see there the 540,000 that we're proposing to use for the street funds as well. Next page. And this is the Enterprise and Internal Service Fund expenditures. Enterprise funds are proposed at 33.8 million through 33.88 million. And beginning fund balance is 20.7, proposing to use 1.6 million of fund balance, but they estimated at just over 19 million for fund balance for the enterprise funds. Internal service funds, proposed budget is 8.9 million and a use of 1.3 million of fund balance in 26 with an ending fund balance of 6.4 million essentially. Next page.
Hey, Madeline.
Yes.
Sorry. I think I answered my own question already now. The forecast of the expenses, the 9/30 date is just when you did the forecast,
Correct. That's, it's basically what it is we take the actuals through 9/30.
Yeah.
And then I forecast it through the end of
Thanks.
the year. Yes. Okay. The next page is the capital improvement funds. Proposed expenditures for capital improvement, as we said, is the 27.3 million. And then they're actually going to be gaining a slight fund balance. So we start the year at 21 million and end at 21.7 million. This is a lot of it is due to the grants that we're proposing and expecting to receive.
Mr. Skog?
Does that wastewater construction number include the replacing the pipe under the lake?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
It's part of the CIP program. All right. And next page. Okay, so this is the final page, risk management and debt service expenditures and the fund balance. Risk management is 2.1 million and debt service is 1.4 million. And the fund balance for risk management employee is 1.5 and estimated fund balance for debt service is 1.2. The majority of or I should not say the majority, but the general obligation bonds, the 2016 refunding bonds, the final payment on those will be made in 2026. And then, no, I'm sorry, it's not that one. It's the 2015 general obligation bonds that will be paid in 26. So the total, again, there's the total of 125.431 in expenditures for 2026. Total estimated beginning fund balance of 73.9 million. Proposed to use 7.1 million of fund balance and end the year at 66.8 million. And that's it for the budget.
Thank you, Madeline. All right, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. And we do have one commenter this evening, Marlene Presser. Oh, will you please approach the podium? That's all right. Yeah, we have to be able to record you.
Hi, my name's Marlene Presser. I actually live in May Valley. I am one of the people that live on West Shore Drive that have had to deal with an absolute nightmare in the construction project that is not finished yet. I wanted to bring a couple things. One is if you're going to show something on the screen, especially a budget, have handouts for the public so we can see it or make it bigger, get bigger screens, I guess. One thing I wanted to bring to everyone's attention is a senior bus service in Grant County. My mom died past last September, and we tried everything to get wheelchair access to May Valley by public transportation, and it was not available anywhere. So I really think with our aging population, we need to think about that. That needs to be some kind of service that's really, really important to our community. Second thing is I filled out the homeless survey, and that's another issue in Grant County. Homelessness does not just happen overnight. We all know that. It's a long-term generational problem, and they don't become mentally ill, drug addicts, or alcoholics in 30 days. So it cannot be fixed in 30 days. And so it needs to be something that's top priority in our community, I think. The other thing I want to bring up is property taxes. There's only one thing separating 30% of the households from bankruptcy, and that's $9,000 to $7,000 on the average for real estate tax. We're coming into tough times. We're already feeling tough times. And it's just going to begin. And we need to come together as a community to be stronger than ever because we're just feeling it now. Trump is not our savior. No politician is our savior. Our community is our savior. And we need to be going door to door and checking on our neighbors to make sure that they're okay. Because they can lose their property like this tomorrow. We don't know. Does anyone know if the CAD system is used for the school district? Can anyone tell me that? If we use the CAD program to do bonding, we need to find out. Because throughout the United States, almost every school district is bankrupt.
Marlene, we've reached the 5
Thank you.
minutes. Thank you very much. And for the record, I believe Ms. Presser's comments were actually related to the next resolution, which is the property tax. So let the record show that I believe, yeah, sorry, I couldn't read the number there very well, so I apologize for that. Being that was the only testimony we have, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. That's it for this evening for that item. And then the next item is property tax, and this is yes. Oh, sorry, we're going to
Continue the hearing
the
to the next
hearing, yes,
meeting.
until the
Thank
next
you.
meeting, sorry. Item number 2, property tax levy resolution 4027. This is also our finance director, Madeline Prentice.
All right, Debbie, if you could go to the next two pages. So the next slide is the property tax levy. Oh, you went back to page 1. Yeah, keep going. Need to go to page 19, please. There we go. Okay, so annually, the city council must set the regular tax levy. And so to do that, we begin with the prior year 2025 levy. We add in an allowable increase of the lower of 1% or the implicit price deflator if it is, but if it's less than 1% or right around there. This year it's 2.44, so we're limited to a 1% increase if we choose to take that. Then you add in bank capacity, if any, if you have bank capacity and you choose to use it, and then add in new construction and the increment value increase for a tax increment area. And that will get you your 2026 proposed levy. The 1% of the highest regular tax, which the city could have lawfully levied, is $11,092,156.10. So if we were to take the 1% levy limit increase, we could add an additional $110,921.56 to our levy amount. The proposed 2026 budget does not include that 1% levy in it. What we did, if you go to the next page, is we took the proposed tax levy, which is $10,613,642. What that takes is the 2025 levy, which was $10,206,864. It adds in the new construction value of $389,926 and the increment value increase of $16,852. Keep in mind, some of these numbers are last year's increment value numbers. We still have not received. The only number I've received an update for is the new construction.
How recent is that number?
The new construction last week.
Citywide?
This is the amount that the city will collect.
Oh, thank you.
The assessed value was 150, the assessed value for the new construction was 155 million. So that would mean in total, we would collect 10,613,642 in property tax levy without the 1% increase. So that's a 3.99%. And again, keep in mind that this is based on the assessed value that we received in late 24 for 25. I do not have that number, so I can't tell you for sure what that assessed valuation is going to be. We can assume that it's going to go up, but we don't know at this point what will happen. Okay. So if you go to the next page, this is the amount with the 1% levy limit increase included in there. So you can see in this example at the bottom of the page there, it has the same numbers, the 10,206,000 for the 2025 levy, plus 110,000 for the 1% increase, the 389,000 for the new construction, and the 16 for the increment value. So the total levy that we could potentially assess is 10,724,000 if we took the 1% levy limit increase. Okay. And if you go to the next page, based on those numbers, currently this year in 25, a home that was valued at 300,000, they would pay $751 annually for their City of Moses Lake tax. And that's at the 2025 rate of 2.503. If we assume no change in that value of that $300,000 home, and we take the amount that is without the 1% increase, they would pay $781 this year. That's an annual increase of $30. And then assume again with the 1% levy increase, that amount would go to $789 or $38 increase. And again, because I don't know what the full assessed value is at this point, I can't tell you for sure whether or not those levy rates will go up or down.
Because we still don't have the final assessed valuation
No.
for the
Nope.
entire year.
Nope. I'm still using the same number that we received in.
I don't think anybody's seen theirs.
No.
I mean,
No.
if
So
you
that's,
haven't, I
that's the
haven't.
number we're using for our budgeting right now.
I have in the budget, I put in a proposed
right.
estimated 10.4. We could potentially increase that to 10.6 or 10.7.
No, I get it, but do we know when we get those numbers?
Radio silent from the county.
I believe this happened last year too.
It did, and last year we actually got a change in the assessed value in December. We got a preliminary estimate in, I think it was late October.
Mhm.
We certified the amount of the levy, and then in, I think it was December 21st, I got an updated levy amount or assessed value amount.
Councilmember Myers?
I was just gonna ask how we can make this decision if we don't fully know what the rate's gonna be.
Well, we can certify the amount. It's just that we won't know what that rate will be until the assessed value is provided.
Makes it a little bit harder to make a decision, a little bit.
Well, right, because that's a known quantity. I mean, sales tax for me is a scarier proposition to project out right now, quite frankly, and that's not a small piece of the pie here in Moses Lake. So, Councilmember Martinez?
So that this doesn't continue of not getting the numbers when we need them, what do we have other than replacing the, yeah. Can't council speak with the commissioners? Who's in charge of the assessor?
The assessor.
Might be able to get some of Enron's accountants.
Well, then we can go elected to elected.
I am reaching out to Department of Revenue to see if there is anything we can do to
Okay.
force her to provide the assessed value earlier, but I don't have anything at this point that I can say, hey, we've got to have this assessed value number.
Well, the office needs to be held accountable, so I appreciate you talking to her, but maybe it needs to go elected to elected.
Okay.
This doesn't help this year, but I actually talked to Brianna Murray, our lobbyist, about a state law change that would give them a deadline. Because apparently they don't really have a deadline to get us the numbers. So she's looking into that idea.
And then in the case they don't, we just obviously default to whatever the current is, correct? Because they're not done necessarily annually anyway. Awesome. Okay. All right, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing, which again, Marlene, thank you for your comments. We acknowledge up here that it was in regards to this item, so that was totally my mistake. There are no other comments. I'll go ahead and close the public testimony for our property tax levy resolution 4027. Does anybody want to make a motion?
The motion whether to pass the 1% or not pass the 1%.
Yeah, just to clarify, it's been presented and again budgeted as if we did not take the 1%. So to
Correct.
further clarify, that banked capacity that we talk about, that's that?
The bank capacity, there is no bank capacity built into this number. And what the resolution states is that we want to, anything that we don't take, that 1%, we will bank it for future
That's what I
years.
meant. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're saying the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm. Yep.
All right. So does that clarify that for you, Dave?
Yeah, so we're saying we're not going to take the 1%.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I would agree with that.
All right. Well,
I'll second that if that was a motion.
you
To
did
make a motion that we do not,
no, that you just
No.
as
Just
presented,
put it
adopt the
as it's
resolution.
written.
okay, I make a motion that we adopt the resolution, not do the 1% increase.
And I think we have a second from Deanna, if she understood the motion correctly.
We are not taking the 1%.
Okay, sounds like a second to me, correct?
Mhm.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. 6-1. All right, moving on to the consent agenda, item number 3. All items listed are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion, which I will accept now.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to old business, item number 4, which is our LTAC or our Lodging Tax Advisory Committee funding recommendations. And here to present this evening is our Parks, Recreation and Cultural Services Director, Mr. Doug Coots. Doug?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a return. We did have council send back the initial recommendations to the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. The Lodging Tax Advisory Committee reviewed the requested changes and came back with the following response. The 3 that were in question were $75,000 for Moses Lake Irrigation and Rehabilitation District. They recommended again not funding that. They did receive additional detail, but felt the detail was still a little incomplete and didn't feel that the intended functions were closely related enough to tourism to support them. The $40,000 for city staff special events was the second support, was the second request. They again recommended not funding that. They did not want to transfer money to the general fund for staff time. And then the third request was $200,000 for surf and slide operations. They came back with an alteration to that and suggested supporting funding $200,000 for surf and slide capital projects with the proviso that the kids structures in the zero depth area should be replaced first, but nothing for operations. I then went back and reviewed the RCW for the lodging tax. The LTAC committee is restricted to selecting from the candidates that have applied. and council is restricted to the approval of the list of the candidates and recommended amounts that are funded from LTAC. In my understanding, and I did check with city attorney on this, this means the LTAC committee does not have the authority to alter a application from operations or change the purpose of the funding. They can basically just say, yes, fund it, no, don't fund it. So I don't believe that the change of the funding of $200,000 from operations to a capital project would be approvable. That all said, that can certainly be cleared by the city attorney if you so choose. The recommendation from staff is that to expedite things, any of the application approvals that you agree with, that you approve those. And if you want to send additional ones back to the committee, urging them to approve them, you can do so. And we can take those back to them again. But we would recommend any of them that you agree with funding, you make that recommendation. And from what I remember, these were the 3 that you had in question. The rest were all acceptable. So that is the report I have. And Councilmember Lombardi was also at the meeting and can comment as well.
Thank you, Mr. Coots. Victor, did you want to add anything?
I would just say it's pretty straightforward the way Doug presented it. Although I will say it was a little interpretation as far as replacing, since we can't replace a submission. I think that was more of a suggestion to the city if they'd like to reconsider and resubmit that.
Correct. And that would be something that we would have to send back to LTAC to say, and then send back to the city, and the city could reapply. We would then open up applications again and have to give a timeline and application deadlines for additional applications. It could not be restricted to just go tell these guys to come in. I don't think it would be open it up again and suggest that this group apply for this thing. So that's my understanding, and I would defer to Catherine on that. I just read the RCW. I'm not an attorney, and I do not play one on TV.
Councilmember Skog.
Okay, so as I understand it, the items that were highlighted in yellow were items that were in question, and those at this point are in limbo.
Correct.
Okay.
Actually, sir, I'm sorry, let me clarify. Right now, everything is in limbo because you have not approved anything.
Okay.
Right? But those 3 were the ones in question.
Okay. I guess I would, having looked at this list for a relatively short time, I would be tempted to defer to the LTAC committee, who has probably spent a lot of time listening, talking, and has a good feel for what is going on here. I would be tempted to, go along with their recommendations, and if some things need to be resubmitted, start that process. But I would like to just make sure that they know. I feel that they have done their due diligence and have listened to a lot of people and spent a lot of time, far more than I, and I don't feel like I would be in a position to rethink their decisions.
Councilmember Fancher.
I was going to be similar to my comments. I would say this, that the LTAC committee was been set up and worked very hard on these over the years. And I think what we run the risk of doing of not supporting and understanding their work on it is if we're not going to go with their recommendations, we might not have an LTAC committee that wants to exist. So I am on board. I would like to say that my comment about, I don't know how we get or what the next steps are to make sure that these large events are, self-supporting. Yes, they have LTAC to go to get funding, but if it's going to continue to grow, it's going to continue to tax the cities, like security and different things like that. And we've got to figure out how to recover those funds. in some capacity. But I think I tend to agree. I know it's a hard-working committee, and I know probably that there's not a long list of people begging to get on the committee either. You know, I mean, it's one of those things that we better think about it. So I'm you know, there's probably more discussion here, but I'm prepared to make sure we do get the ones funded that are definitely not in question.
Councilmember Martinez.
Mark covered some of what I was going to say. Yes, we need to release the money to those organizations that we've already agreed to. I do understand that the LTAC committee spends a lot of time figuring this out, and I don't negate that whatsoever. But I do have a concern, again, these big festivals, when we're spending a whole lot of money for public safety, and it's coming out of our general fund. And I think, City Manager Rob, you mentioned something about increasing fees or something. I can't remember, but I mean, at some point, people need to understand that the city budget isn't going to get any better. We're still at a 2 million deficit. So we can fund everything out of our general fund, or we can start looking at ways that we can cover some of our costs. Because the city is a business, and most businesses just don't give away free product or free services. I know that's tough to hear, but that is our reality for right now. Secondly, or thirdly, wherever I'm at the point, excuse me. Maybe that was it. Yeah, I still think, oh, I know what it was, Doug. If we send this back with a proposal to resubmit for Surf and Slide, do we have any idea what that would cost, those upgrades or replacements?
At this moment in time, none. Those are, the structures in the shallow end are aging. The company that produced them is no longer in existence. So it would be a custom design scenario. I have not in the interim had in any moment to sit down and go, where would we even find this and how much would it cost? It has been on our list and we repair it as best we can every year, but we can no longer get parts for it. So yeah, we are looking at it actively. It's on our list of what we need to do. We just don't have a plan for anywhere to go to do it. So as we discussed in the LTAC meeting, they asked if we could get it done next year. I said probably not before the season, possibly after the season. So we could potentially do the work and have it go one more season and then get it done. But again, we'd have to send it all the way back to LTAC, have it all the way come back. I believe we were looking at about $320,000 right now that was floating, that was not allocated by LTAC. So we could look at that and send that back out, and the city could come back with some recommendations of funding back to LTAC, as well as open it up to the community if anybody else wanted to apply. It does have to be a local unit of government or a nonprofit. It cannot be Joe Public applying for funds to improve their backyard landscaping. Unfortunately, doesn't go to that. So just keeping that, I wanted to put that out there because we did get one application from a private business this year that we had to decline. So, but yeah, we could take that back, and then the city could look at that and look at companies that do that and get a ballpark estimate from them.
So not to get too far down the road with this, you would look to replace what already exists and not do something new that's available?
I don't know that we can replace what currently exists. It would probably have to be something new,
Okay.
because we just don't, that does not exist anymore.
Okay, and then to follow up on something that you said that I was curious about. So if we stick with this as the LTAC advises, there's still $320,000 of money. And I think last meeting that we had this discussion, there was, I think, a majority of council members that didn't really have an interest in putting $320,000 away in some fund to maybe use at some future date for some future project.
That's
Again,
my
again, because of the budget.
correct. That's my recollection.
So if we go with this advisement, where does that $320,000 go? Into that fund?
Yes. I verified with the finance expert by
mean-
looking at her and having her go.
I knew the answer, but I wanted to make sure that people understand that. We're putting away $320,000 for a potential project in the future when the city has problems with their budget.
Correct. However, this funding can only be used for certain things.
Sure.
Um,
Like these on the list.
these on the list can be used for. So yeah, it could be used to defray some of the costs of staffing, some of the costs at tourism facilities like Surf and Slide. However, LTAC is not recommending that, as that has not been the practice within the city. What I would say is that I am putting together for that 15%. It will no longer be money that is just set aside and sitting there. I am putting together a process for application for a local government entity to apply for those funds for a capital project related to tourism. So that will not just be a fund that sits there and gathers dust. We will be actively using that fund going forward.
That's some good news. Thank you.
So when you say local government entity, can you give me an example of how that might work?
The Port of Moses Lake, if they were putting in some sort of a tourism facility, the city of Moses Lake could put in an application for softball field and baseball field improvements to draw more tournaments, to, those kinds of things.
Okay, or MLIRD could put in a boat, something.
Some sort of physical capital improvement, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Just to add, so one of the discussions was for next year to ask the city to submit a very large amount for redoing the baseball fields, because that would increase tournaments, serious tournaments. So do you want to add on that? Because that was a pretty healthy discussion on that.
We had a good discussion on that. It is a project that 2 years ago I applied for a COAF community outdoor athletic facilities grant for and was unsuccessful. But it was approximately just under $500,000 project that would redo the infields and the outfields of all the fields at Larson play fields, would replace all of the backstop netting on all of the fields, and it would put in a new sound system at the stadium field. So that was I think it was $470,000, and that would be something that is almost tailor-made for this 15% fund.
And so are we more eligible or more highly regarded in the grant process if we do provide our own funding to match it, or is that?
Absolutely. So if I were to do this, and City Manager Carl Lindsay and I have already had discussion about this, if we were to get the process in place to do this, we could have that process be, you can apply at any time, and the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee will review the application and sit down and make a recommendation to City Council for approval.
And okay, and there's a baseball entity that's also asked for LTAC, or this is one and the same?
There is no baseball entity that has asked for LTAC to date.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. It would be grass, it would be infield dirt, it would be all of that. It would be reskinning the entire field, taking.
And to
inches
your
off.
knowledge, then the fields would be tournament playable as?
The fields, in a conversation I had this afternoon, the fields are tournament playable, but would draw more and higher athletic ability tournaments and more tournaments if we were more playable. It is just an attractiveness of the tournament space. Larson is in much more desperate need of these improvements. Is it playable? Yes. Is it safe? Yes. Could it be better? Yes. So this would be funds that would draw in more tournaments. We are on the rise in our tournaments since COVID. We were at COVID, we shut down, obviously, but then we Pre-COVID, we were averaging 15 to 18 tournaments. The past 2 years, we were at 10 and 12 sequentially, and this year we had 16 scheduled and 1 canceled. So we're getting back up there, but these improvements would help us draw more.
Awesome.
And that's, again, it's a conversation of what ifs, but that could be a matching for a youth athletic facilities grant. And that's what I was talking about with City Manager Carl Lindsay, is that, he suggested going after the grant and using this as matching funds so that we would then be able to, it would be a 50-50 match, and the $490,000 to $500,000 a project becomes a $250,000 project for us.
Yeah, I like that.
So.
Okay. Yeah, that's good discussion. Okay. All right, any other questions, comments, concerns? I think sounds like people are leading in the direction. So if somebody wanted to make a motion to that effect, we can move on with our business.
I would make a motion to approve the funding recommendation as presented, which is, I believe, all of the funds that, because the funding was not to fund, I would just make sure I'm right, that the funding was not to provide any funds to basically to the city or the MLRD.
For those
three.
For those three items.
line
The funding did not change from the last meeting.
Okay.
That's the funding recommendation.
So, yeah, my motion stands then.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Don't mess with me now. All right. Vivian,
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's old new business.
it's all the same to me, really.
As you recall, back in August, you set the 2025 docket for code amendments. Because there were 52 of them, we split them up into different groups, as I said in my staff report. And the first group, there's only 4 of them, but we have applicants waiting on these changes. They contact us frequently, and so the items are docket item number 3 is to change the requirements for hard surfacing on mini storages within the industrial districts. Docket item number 11 is to allow for drive-through restaurants and setting the standards for those within certain zones. Docket item number 15 is adding auto repair and auto body shop uses to the land use chart. And docket item number 30 is a change, overhaul actually, of our airport overlay district. Our senior planner, Nathan Pate, has been workshopping these with the Planning Commission, and he will go through them with you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Council members, we have basically a part of the attachments in the ordinance. If you want to follow along, we can do so. As described by Acting Director Ramsey, the first item is changing the regulations to allow basically gravel for mini storage, and that includes their loading and parking area. There is going to be a small apron for them to come in. The apron is important to make sure there's no track out in the public roads, and give a service to get emergency services in the property. And this is supported, of course, by Planning Commission. They reviewed it, and there's a specific applicant who attended at least the last hearing and was very positive in the direction of the code amendments as written. And these are being presented, of course, today for ordinance if accepted. So that would be attachment A, which is a combination of 3 and 4. It's got a little bit more to it. B is to allow drive-throughs, and that includes the location of the drive-throughs in the downtown area, as well as other forms of drive-throughs for banks, pharmacies, and other activities. If there's a conditional use permit, there's differing standards or a little bit more stringent standards, because those are ones that are in our downtown core. And our downtown core has a focus of pedestrian access. We want to get people out of their cars, walking through the shops, and visiting as many places as possible. So there's a different view of how we address drive-throughs, because drive-throughs support vehicles, which is a little bit contrary to our downtown. So there's some standards. We do have a question, two separate sections for council to provide feedback to the decision-making of this ordinance for the drive-throughs. The first question is, in the conditional use permits, there's a requirement for stacking a maximum of 5 to keep the project small. Staff's been reviewing that section as well as with a potential applicant, and the desire is rather have a maximum that they have a design for 5. Why is that allows the opportunity for a little more flexibility. Whereas if you put a maximum that says, hey, you're gonna be looking at your project to be small, it's gonna have to have just 5. Now it says, well, if council agrees, it would be designed for 5. And that has a little bit of nuance, and it can be a little bit larger drive-through, but it's a question to the council. The second question is for the drive-through windows for everyone else. There's a section in the middle that basically says that if there's a setback associated with the drive-through from property lines or intersections, whether it's going to be screened and fenced to make sure there's a clear barrier, a distinction for that space. Right now, the code only has the distinction for intersections. And the question to council is whether or not that's true for all property lines and or in intersections. Whether we have screening and landscaping for that, basically 10-foot separation. So keep those in mind. If in fact you want to make those changes to the way it's written, we do want to ask that this be pulled and separated from the rest, so we can move the rest of them to final adoptions, of course. Or we can change the hearing to meet the changes as desired by council. So I know that sounds a little confusing. Just 2 questions on those particular actions. The next one, of course, is talking about auto repair and auto body shops. They being permitted for auto repair in basically the C1A, the C2, the light industrial, heavy industrial, and for paint, clarification, put them in the C2 and industrial districts. And we have a specific definition for those particular actions. And the Planning Commission really wanted to make sure we had an understanding of where those would be allowed, and we have applicants desiring completion of those amendments. The airport overlay, that took a little bit of energy. We did talk to Washington State Department of Aviation. We got feedback from specialists in the aviation division, and we take this particular application to our airport commission. And our commission studied it and provided a recommendation to the Planning Commission for approval with some questions. Those questions were then brought back to the Washington State Department of Aviation expert, and they said, well, those are great questions. Our code as written actually meets the statutes and or the guidelines as proposed. So we got an answer back to the commission. We did have a commission, the chair and the commission member attend the hearings in support of the particular amendments. And what this amendment does is it protects the approaches of the airports. It basically removes high density activities. So schools, churches, synagogues, other forms of religious activities, and like hospitals. So if you have an approach, we don't want an opportunity, we don't want the occasion even to have a collision at all, but the frequency of collision and having those activities there is basically want to keep those out of those approach areas and takeoff areas. So as part of the regulations, we said those property owners shouldn't necessarily be penalized. So there's what's called a TDR, transfer development right, where those rights that are in that occupied space now can be moved to the outer edge of those properties if it's available, and they get better density and better zoning with their properties if in fact they're affected by the approach areas. So we crafted in a way that 1, we protected the airport, and 2, hopefully protected or help the property rights from losing the ability to use their property. So that's the airport rewrite. Took some energy, took some effort. I'm glad we got some good positive results from the airport commissioners, as well as the state. And we're hoping that the council accepts and moves forward. And that staff's available for questions.
Hold on, Dave. Councilmember Martinez.
Yeah, I want to go back to the drive-through.
Sure.
What's it going to take to get Favorite Farmhouse their drive-through if they want to proceed with that still? That's, which one?
This is it.
Okay,
To get these, right now, it's basically prohibited.
right.
So this would be.
Yes, because we allowed it and then we disallowed it, correct? With the
Yeah.
code update. So
Yeah.
will this, what you're saying, because I thought you said there were two options.
Those were questions.
Oh,
For the
two
planning
questions, sorry.
commission, yeah,
Okay.
If the council does choose to make, so the regulations would allow the use. But the clarification is whether there's that much control in the queuing requirements, if you want to break it up a little bit, and whether or not you want to have a little more different for landscaping for the buffer.
Okay.
But in theory, we're getting back to the way it kind of was before, and next door neighbor would get a benefit of this regulations.
Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
All righty.
Is it okay if I jump in and help out a little bit?
Sure.
So to go to page 7 of 17 or 62 of 93, whichever page numbering you're looking at. So if you go to the very bottom there, the very bottom of the page, footnote 7.
Mhm.
Yeah. This was a question I had was, so as Nathan just said, it would be a maximum. So this footnote 7 pertains to the C1 zone where it would be a conditional use, which is favored farmhouse.
Mhm.
And so it says a maximum service stacking lane of 5. We thought we heard them say they could fit more than 5 on their proposed drive-through because they're looking at doing the drive-through at the back building, which is going to be constructed in the future, not at their current farmhouse. And so my question was, if there's a maximum stacking of 5, but they actually have room for 7, would they, what would happen if they had room for 7? So that was my issue. So I like Nathan's solution, which is a design for 5, but if you have a little bit more room just because of the configuration of your property, then fine.
That makes sense.
Thank you.
Is that essentially a minimum of 5 then?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. That's basically what we're looking at, yeah.
Councilmember Skog.
I know we'll have to be very careful with these lanes. If we had an ordinance that would restrict a Chick-fil-A from coming to Moses Lake, my wife would hate me. But I think the part of it is if they've got the property to, to be flexible. If do they have to have a minimum of 5? I wouldn't think so. But I think if they could plan for 7, let them do it if it's on their property.
Well, you probably do want a minimum on there because there are going to be lines, right? Busy mornings. And so if you only allowed 1 car, I mean, if there was only room for 1 car and 4 people were in line, they'd be waiting out in the street. So I think it makes sense to have a minimum for a quiet little place like this where there's very, very little traffic. Probably don't need a ton, probably don't need a large minimum.
Councilmember Lombardi.
Yes, I think the city manager kind of alluded to it. I just wanted the public to know when we're talking about stacking, we're talking about vehicles.
Yes.
Okay, because we just kind of just went over that, so I wasn't sure if they were aware of that. So,
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Madewell.
maybe a suggestion for them too is to take an order, have their car move up. And then somebody could run the drinks out to them. That would be a suggestion too. And then they wouldn't have to worry so much about the stacking. Cause then I don't think they have, the availability to do that.
Well,
So,
it's 5 regardless if they're in front of the window or behind the window.
right. But if they took the order and then just had the car move on up farther into the property, then they could continue to, is a suggestion.
Mhm.
Right, so I'll ask again, the way it's written, they can do what they want.
In effect,
Yes, okay, then I'm good.
but we do want to add the flexibility of not saying a maximum.
Right,
And if you do that, we'll have to change and have a hearing for that change.
but there's nothing that says that we have to apply a minimum.
No, it's a good idea though. It really is, because if we don't give clear expectations to the developer. So for example, we have Numerica, we have other banks and other things, and they're basing some of their final product on the results of these regulations because their design is affected by these particular standards that we put in. So they were now they can meet both. They can meet both already. They have a little bit different configuration for their lot, but if there's clear expectation and you set the standards, then those people that know the understanding can move forward pretty easily through the process. If we don't have clear expectation, then we just say, hey, don't get into the street, there's lots of questions. And the applicant then has to answer. Whereas if we know the distance and they say, I got that distance, I made it, good job. We're conversation over, permit issued. With, of course, a conditional use permit and all those stuff to go with it. But that's the
All these other
code,
steps.
so, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So for your next steps, if these are the planning commission recommendations after their public hearing. So if any of these 4 items you want to adopt as written, we can bring them back to you for at the next meeting for your adoption. If there's something that you want to change, then we need to hold another public hearing so the public knows what you're changing, and that will come back to you in December. So that was, Nate was talking about if you wanted to change the drive-through one, we can separate it out. If you wanted to adopt the other 3 as written.
Councilmember Fancher.
So on the drive-through thing, it was presented as 5, but to allow for more, that's a change. Huh, how'd that happen? If you got room, you got room.
The planning commission worked on this quite a bit.
They fall asleep there? I know them.
No, they're trying to.
I think that they were considering that the downtown is a walkable.
Right.
Yeah, the emphasis on walking downtown and drive-throughs aren't really.
No, I
That
agree. It's pretty unique to downtown, no doubt. So, I'd also like to get it cleaned up and done. I guess I would also ask from the public comment side, how did it get to your recommendation of 7 or more? I shouldn't say 7 as allowing more flexibility.
Standard practice.
Okay.
What we did was we took multiple codes from other jurisdictions, and we want to make sure that, of course, we get it back into our code and then put kind of bookends and
Okay.
clear guidance for our public or our developers. And it came out of probably 2 different code sections from different jurisdictions.
Fair enough. So you're looking for direction right now to bring it back, basically.
Councilmember Scott, did you have something to add?
One question on the stacking.
Mhm.
or said only one service stacking lane is allowed. How does that apply, like what's at, say McDonald's today?
If they're in the downtown, that's the standard specification. If they're in the other C districts, then you can have multiple windows, basically.
Okay.
Or for a bank, it would be multiple windows. For McDonald's, it'd be ordering, queuing back up to a single window.
Right? So is that double lane not necessarily considered stacking? Or
It
they're
is,
just in a different zone?
correct, but it's applied differently in different zones.
Okay. Okay.
So for this airport overlay
Mhm.
zone,
Yes.
how does that differ from what we have in place now? And what is the impetus for that change?
So we didn't have much of anything now. And our airport commission asked us to solve the problem. And that's part of how we got to it on the list and moved it forward. We do also have an annexation that's kind of pending the results because their design is going to be specific to whether or not the council agrees that this is the direction you want to go. Because right now the code is relatively absent in protecting the airport. It doesn't have a whole lot of anything in it.
Sure. Okay, a lot of that, I don't know that it protects the airport as much as it protects other people, correct? Just so we're clear.
Yeah, so if we have, my understanding is that the airport does want the protection zones because they want to be able to continue operations. And that encroachment, when you get closer and closer and closer, changes how they operate and maybe even would get rid of them eventually over time. And that's my understanding, so I don't have any better description than that.
Okay, and what effect would, so there's the annexation request, right? That which was prior to this request or
Yes, it's
suggestion?
still an active annexation,
Right. So that's in process at the moment.
correct?
Okay. And that was based on something that would be prohibited under this?
No, this actually gives them what they're looking to have. Now, the corridor, the flight path is going to be basically backyards and a little bit of open space or road, where before it would have been under the airport, they desired like no residential under that particular flight path.
Okay.
And this gives them something, again, with more density on the edges and then a clear zone in the middle.
Okay. Councilmember Lombardi?
I was just going to say, we have a commissioner here, so
Yes.
he would be able to
I think
explain
that
it.
took care of the question I had.
Okay.
Did you have something, Dave?
Yeah, was this, where did this format or just the whole plan come from? Is this a one-off? Is this an industry standard? Is it something that everybody else does?
This was borrowed from another jurisdiction and then reviewed through the guidelines from DOT. DOT provided us the guidelines for implementing the regulations for this particular activity, and then reviewed by the specialist and reviewed by the airport commission. So it came through the regulations from another jurisdiction that has another airport.
I mean, we're talking affecting miles of property.
Those overlays are already there.
Okay.
Yep, by the existence of the airport, there's conical areas.
Okay, that's what I was
Protection.
getting at. All right.
Yeah, those
So
are
this
already
just
there.
more clearly defines the activities that can take place in those exact zones so that the
Correct.
developer or landowner has an opportunity to reorient their project if they can.
Yes, and get benefit from the bonus densities as well as the upzoning.
I see what you're saying. Because of the proximity to the airport,
Yep.
we're
If they-
allowed to do, okay, this makes a little bit of sense.
So
It goes,
if they're impacted by it.
yeah, it goes both ways, so to
Yeah.
speak. I mean, I'm looking at this wondering, well, why wasn't the state, banging down our door saying, why don't you have this in place? Which suggests to me that maybe not every jurisdiction that operates an airport has this necessarily and just defaults to a more whatever we had before, right?
Yes, the objective is two parts, as you mentioned. One, giving a developer an opportunity to use more of their land, and then one, to make sure we protect the areas for the approaches.
Okay. Well, I'll go to more planning commission meetings so I don't have to ask these questions next time, but okay, that makes a lot more sense.
We do have a member that may want to speak to you as well.
Did you want to add anything, Mr. Davis? Yeah. Yeah, hold up.
We won't take long. Jeremy Davis, Vice Chair for the Moses Lake Airport Commission. So the documentation that he's providing and the airport, or excuse me, that the airport overlay zone is actually a state of Washington Department of Transportation Aviation Division standard.
Yeah.
So when we had the meeting with the developer, I don't recall his name, the gentleman out of Othello, he mentioned at that meeting that he had another project going on, or excuse me, another piece of property in Ritzville that he, near the airport, he was going to develop similarly to what he was hoping to do here. And Dr. Eisen, who works for the DOT Aviation Division, the specialist, clarified with the developer that that would not be allowed there either, because all airports have this overlay to protect the approach and departure ends of an airport.
Yeah.
And it's not just for the safety of the public, it's for the safety of the pilots and crew, so that in the event that they do have a mishap in the most critical phases of flight, which are your departures
Takeoff
and
and
landings, they have a place to go. So as you stated earlier, it gives the developer an opportunity to increase density along the outside edges of that zone. So it's about a 2,000 foot, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's a 2,000 foot length of excess space. So in our case, for his property, it basically extends from Wheeler Road to the canal.
Yep.
In that piece, about, I think 500 feet wide or something to that effect. So it basically, this is a standard. And as you kind of questioned, why aren't they banging our door down to fix this? All cities really should put this in their development code or their building codes, simply for the developers to know ahead of time, because had this developer known that, he may have made a different decision in purchasing this property, or at least changed his overall plan. Because he was rather frustrated at that meeting because he'd already had a plan. He'd spent a lot of money engineering that design, and then we basically threw a grenade at it and made him start over. But he would have started over anyway, because it's not allowed per state law, because the DOT has, these are state regulations that are imposed on airports. It seems somewhat excessive, I guess, in a overall look, but once you kind of read it and understand it, there's a lot more options.
Yeah, I mean, we've been examining this for a while, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking of other examples of runways in the state of Washington.
Right.
Um,
The bigger the runway, the bigger that expanse is. So like Grant County on the long runway, that expanse
Sure.
is really long.
Sure, my perception, however, is like SeaTac, for instance,
Right.
it feels fairly dense
It is-
around
it is very
there,
dense.
right? So,
Yep. And but if you look at SeaTac, there's room for an airplane, not a 737 to go down.
yeah, and
but
I can
there's-
acknowledge
There's
that.
room, there's roads there.
Might be a freeway they're landing on.
There could be
but-
a freeway, yes.
Yeah.
But yes, there's a ditch space essentially is what it is.
That's fair. Okay.
It's not I mean, as a pilot, it's not our intention to ever have to ditch an airplane, but believe me, every time I take off at municipal, that's something I talk through verbally before you leave the
Well,
ground.
we do have runaway truck,
Correct.
Yep. Catchers.
We actually say it out loud every time. If I lose an engine, I'm going there.
Mhm.
If I am turning out, I'm going there. And we do that as pilots, we do that all through our flight. So having these protection zones is very critical. And I appreciate planning coming in to us as a commission and saying, hey, we'd like to put this in the planning document so that we're getting ahead of it with the developers, as opposed to getting behind the 8 ball and then surprising them and going, well, surprise, guess what? You can't do that.
Yeah.
Because that's never good.
Yeah, and unfortunately in the news recently, there was a UPS plane, I believe,
Yes.
that had
The engine departed the airplane.
Fell off the
fell off the
You
airplane.
use different terminology than I do.
We
just
tried
call
to
it
soften
Fell
it.
off, yeah,
We soften it.
okay.
It stayed on the ground.
Yep, yeah, I think Rocket Research called them, incidents when they
Yes,
got there.
they're an
Yeah.
incident. It's a
Okay,
mishap.
right, there you go. All right, well, that makes a lot more sense. Thank you for shedding
Yeah,
some light
you're
on that.
One last question. Is there anybody that owns property in that area that would have time or could make or has made comments about these proposed regulations?
Yes, they've been participating. The person that's annexed or going to be annexed, if council agrees, has been appraised of the regulations from the beginning. And each iteration, they've seen copies of it.
And is he happy, angry, frustrated?
They would like to
Compliant.
finish, yeah, they're excited to get it done so they can finish their design.
And it does allow for commercial within that development, right? Because I think that was part of the plan.
Yes, yeah, the northern half is not the northern, the portion that's northern of the railroad.
Closer to the rail, okay, that,
Yep.
or the airport, excuse me.
Correct.
Yes, okay, great. Okay, I think we're done with that item then.
So would you like us to bring the 3 items that won't be changed for adoption next meeting? And then set the public hearing for the first meeting in December for
We
the,
have that consensus, yes.
I think so.
Yes,
for the drive-through one?
yes.
Yep.
No, November.
No, it's
First
not.
meeting in, the public hearing will be the first meeting in December?
Yeah, this is just a presentation.
The 19th was the advertised. So the change for the drive-through will be designed for 5? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Item number 6 is limited use shallow wells for irrigation. This is exciting. Ordinance 3079. And I don't say that facetiously either.
This is progress, right? Good
Yes.
evening, Mayor and Council, and good to see you again. So I'm here this evening with a municipal code update ordinance to look at 13.07.010, which is our water conservation restrictions rationing section, essentially, of our code. We, back on September 16th at our all-day water meeting, had a discussion with council regarding drafting an update to allow limited use shallow irrigation wells within city limits. We had proposed some requirements for that, and they are outlined in your packet. If you wanted to start on page 75 of your packet in red, you can see that we have thrown in that parcels that are owned by public or semi-public entities and operated for public or semi-public use within city limits may apply for a permit to allow for the installation of a limited use shallow aquifer irrigation well. So we've outlined some definitions for the public to help understand what some of that terminology is. The eligibility requirements match what we discussed at that September 16th meeting, which includes the owned and operated by public or semi-public must be parcel size minimum of 3 acres. It cannot have access to an alternative irrigation source, including Moses Lake Irrigation District or nearby canal systems, with the thought being that we want to encourage them to use the alternative sources rather than dipping into the shallow aquifer in case at some point we're competing for water. The applicant must provide proof of legal access to shallow groundwater, and the proposed well location complies with all applicable cross-connection control, sanitary control zone, and wellhead protection zone requirements. Now, I wanted to provide clarification. We are requiring a permit application. The reason why is city staff will need to be able to go out and inspect the plumbing that is installed to ensure that there is no risk of contaminating our potable water system. So we will try and make that permit process as painless as possible, but we do need to be able to go out and review that we're protecting our system as well.
Councilmember Lombardi.
Thank you, Mayor. So it looks like you're defining public and semi-public by the parcel, not by the entities or eligible entities itself. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's it.
Yeah, I
Thank
think in this instance, it's semi-public would be anywhere where their door is open to the public.
you. Right, and that's where, if we're defining like, is it a church? Is it this?
Mhm.
Is it these type of categorizations? But we're not doing that. We're doing it by parcel. So I just wanted to clarify that. That's all.
So we're saying that the parcel owner would be public or semi-public, and that is, parcel owner would be who would be responsible for the installation and maintenance of that well.
Right, yeah, I think there's a consensus here that we're in favor of this from past discussions, but I just wanted to make sure that we were defining this as narrow as possible, just due to the fact that I'd hate to have somebody come in and say, well, I am a semi-public, but maybe their parcel does, their parcel doesn't meet the qualifications. So
Yeah.
that's why I asked that question. Thank you.
Councilmember Fancher.
What is the definition of available other sources of water? Like, is it a distance?
It could be.
Or
So
like I get if it's adjacent, like it's touching any of those, I 100% get that. But if it's a
Yeah.
parcel that's
Frequent
100 feet
easement,
of private owner between them and they can't gain access, then obviously it's not available. And I
correct.
shouldn't say obviously.
Yeah, we would ask that they make every effort to attempt to gain access, but if they don't have direct access to that infrastructure or the
I
ability
guess
to
that's
draw
the
on
key,
it.
is the direct access,
Correct.
meaning
What if, see, I see you, Don. I'm just gonna ask this question real quick. What if there are two adjoining properties that together meet the 3-acre threshold and they want to serve both the properties with one well?
I don't believe we would allow that to occur. We would have to check with legal counsel, but at that point, they're essentially creating their own small water system. And that becomes an issue in our retail service area. So we're not sure that Department of Ecology would allow that either.
Okay. Councilmember Myers?
My question, what happens if the property sells to a private entity that doesn't allow for public space? Then do they continue the well or is it discontinued?
They're conferring.
I would be in favor of continuing the use.
is it a single parcel? I mean, that's what we're talking about. So if you
Correct.
did sell it and tried to subdivide it, then it wouldn't apply. Correct?
Correct.
Because you can't have a community system. So it would still be one large parcel. I mean, at the time.
Right, but you could have a church that was purchased by a fitness company.
Fitness company, yeah,
Right.
fitness company. And then I don't have I mean, if it's there, I don't have a problem with it at that time. It could happen. I'm not saying it can't happen, but the bigger, I think, concern would be, which that's taken care of, is that you take a 5-acre parcel and the highest and best use is a multifamily project with the same thing.
Yeah.
In a multifamily project, they might not need near as much irrigation water, but anyway, that's probably a more bigger concern. But if it's a subdivision where they're gonna take a 5-acre parcel and turn it into 40 lots or 50 lots, it couldn't happen. It wouldn't be, because it would be a community system then.
What would be wrong with allowing a developer to do that?
I'm not saying that's wrong. It's just, then it's a whole different animal of approvals. We have that authority.
Is that something we need to include on process on how to if there's a subdivision or if it changes hands. I mean, there's a lot of questions, what ifs.
Yeah, so right now, the ordinance is drafted to address the initial allowance of an irrigation well, and you meet these criteria. There isn't anything currently in the ordinance that speaks to what happens if the use that was originally a public use is now converted by sale and location of another business in that area that may not be a public use, or the subdivision. I mean, I think we're all kind of assuming that the eligibility would then cease, but there isn't anything specifically in the ordinance that addresses what happens in those situations. So if that's something that the council is concerned about, we might want to consider adding that section to address those situations.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So when an ordinance like this goes into effect, that can be interpreted a number of ways as we move forward in the future. Do you, as the attorney, write up a background intent form? You know, kind of like what the Federalist Papers supposed to do for the Constitution, right? You know, what was the intent of this amendment, right? So do we write up anything like that? So that way in 5 to 8 years, a developer comes in and says, this is the way I interpret this?
Not typically, although if there is legislative intent that the council wants expressed when it is adopting legislation, we would include those as recitals in the ordinance, so that if you go back and just like you would a bill in the legislature, you've got a legislative history to access.
Okay.
If there isn't, then right now under our code, it would be up to the director in that department to make a code interpretation. And we have an appeal process about code interpretations if somebody disagrees with how the code is interpreted.
Okay, thank you.
And so just in the spirit of what Councilmember Lombardi's talking about, the reason we don't just say, well, anybody who has the funds or whatever to put in a well for irrigation purposes can, is because it's bad practice for a number of reasons, as defined by ecology mostly, correct?
Yes, so we have within our retail service area, we of course are the water purveyor, and we are tasked with maintaining the integrity of our system. And so we want to ensure that anything that is drilled well-wise that is close to our system, we are preventing contamination. So that is a concern for us, as we want to ensure that we are limiting the number of wells that are going in. But it is our retail service area, so we can provide authorization on this limited use.
Okay. So really, that's the primary driver of why we're even having this discussion to start with, right? Because again, to Mr. Lombardi's point, I think, part of this is, and I was thinking about this, why limit it to semi-public? Again, Walmart has their doors open to the public all the time, right? So why wouldn't they qualify? Because the spirit, as far as I'm concerned, is to get as many users off our municipal potable water system as we can. So I think this is just a way more of appeasing the higher regulatory body to say we're doing something to limit it, while at the same time trying to solve our problem, right? So I don't know how that gets memorialized or if that's necessary, but
I think Madam Council mentioned recitals, but I don't think that means singing, right? So
that's fair. Councilmember Myers?
I think to capture the intent, we're looking to, and Councilmember Skog brings this up all the time, maintain public green spaces while protecting our potable water.
Yes. So probably going with what Mr. Fancher was suggesting, change of use. That would, to me, prompt a reexamination of this, which I don't know what the permitting terms would be, if that's a one-time permit for life, or, at the time of sale, then the permit becomes null and void, or however we look at that. Or change of use, either way.
And if you'd like, I can update the recitals. We did have a portion in the staff report where we stated that staff and council recognize that public and semi-public entities with large green spaces function as gathering spaces, sports fields, and benefit our residents.
Mhm.
As such, we want to encourage cultivation of these spaces while being good stewards of our available water resources.
Great.
So if you'd like, I can take that section and add it to the recitals and mention, reducing reliance on the potable water system for landscaping.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Councilmember Scog, did you have an addition?
Just that if somebody had a permit to do that, and then they, it becomes a non-public entity to say, now you have to buy our water when we already don't want to be selling it. So I would, I think once the well's in the ground, it should be used. I would hate to see it shut off one day.
Well, every person will have a chance to apply or make their project comply with that if that's something they desire. We're also not opposed to people using less water. So if they can design their project to have features that use less water, that's also great. Okay. I think we have enough to be able to make a motion with the direction.
So is that
Somebody
clear
would like
enough for
to.
staff to make the changes if we pass the ordinance?
I think because we're updating the recitals, I would like to draft that and bring it back for council to review before adoption.
That'd be great. All right, we'll go ahead and then just table this for this evening then. And bring it back in a month.
I'll
Or-
send it back with Brian to the next meeting. How about that?
Okay. It's not irrigating season at the moment, but if we put this in, somebody might want to start planning
That's
for the
fine.
irrigation
Yes.
season, right?
I would
So,
love if we could get this
yeah,
completely
that would
adopted
be
before the end of the
cool
year.
if somebody took us up on the offer and did it. So, great. Thank you very much for your presentation. We'll move on to business item number 7, which is the IAFF Labor Memorandum of Agreement. And Shannon Springer, our HR Director, is here this evening to present.
Good evening. This is the first of a couple that will have a little bit of a relation. This first one is, again, between the city and our firefighter local. And it references working with the local strategically to identify a reorganization of the fire department. The goal there was obviously the budget was one area being looked at, but also we had a SAFER grant that was going to be expiring. And so to try to preserve SAFER grant funded positions. And so through discussions with the local, arrived at the agreement that you have in front of you. Some of the objectives of that reorganization were also to enhance customer service and permit coordination, and then also to realign fire marshal services. So again, part of your goal of having a permit center and having more centralized work, as we'll discuss in my next topic. In that report I have for you, I've summarized the positions affected by this reorganization, and some of that work will move to other departments, and then some of that work is being taken on by the line staff of the fire department. And so asking for your approval on this memorandum of agreement between the city and the fire department, which our city manager could sign. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Shannon.
I'd move to approve the IAFF Memorandum of Agreement as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Yeah, I don't think you're done yet.
On to the next one.
I think so.
Okay.
All right, so this next order of business is number 8, the AFS-CME Memo of Agreement for Position Change. Shannon?
So as I mentioned, streamlining and getting a permit center. So this one is with our ASME union, which represents our community development department staff. And so first of all, creating a permit coordinator position to kind of be the point person for the public to go to make sure, pardon me, see where they're at in the process. In addition to that new position, there would be a couple of current represented positions that we would no longer be having in the union. The staff in those positions will move to other departments as well. And so in talking with the union, they have agreed to the MOA that you have in front of you for the new position and the placement on the scale that we currently have, as well as the other positions that will no longer be represented. And I've included where those staff would be going in those new roles. Sure.
When Shannon's mentioning a new position, just want to clarify that what we're doing is we're not filling an existing building inspector position, and instead we're converting that into the permit coordinator position.
Okay.
So it's a net increase of 0.
Mhm. All right, any questions or comments regarding the AFSCME?
No.
Councilmember Martinez?
No.
Nothing? Okay.
So I'll move to approve the AFSCME position change as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, and I'll just say there hasn't been much discussion about this evening, but I know that we've had quite a bit of discussion about this leading up to tonight. We do like to keep our business transparent, but so I will say I really appreciate all the work that has gone into this, even with the lack of our comments up here. I know how difficult this process can be. And it's a testament to everybody on staff that they're buying into what we're doing here and facing our budget challenges in a realistic way. So thank you for all your work on this. With that being said, we do have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, our final order of business this evening, number 9, is bilingual compensation policy. And Shannon, you're up again.
All right. So if you will recall last year about this time, the council passed a bilingual pay stipend, and that was related to our unrepresented staff. This year, we had a student intern that was here, and so he went through and did a pretty extensive review of comp cities to look at their bilingual stipends and who was covered by those. And as a result, we're recommending to you that we extend this stipend to our represented group in ASME. By doing so, that will make it fairly consistent through all the groups to be able to have this type of stipend. And we've included in there the cost for you. Overall, with the new group being added, they would still have to be able to meet the requirements of the policy that you passed. And so we don't feel that there will be a large number of staff that will qualify for that. And overall, the difference in cost would be about $4,000 over the course of the year to add that stipend, if staff were able to qualify for that. Also within this, we would increase the stipend by applying COLA 2.7%, so going from $75 to $77 a month as well. So that's included in those figures that you see in your report. Happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Lombardi.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So Shannon, how does this work exactly if, I've worked internationally and you go to Holland and people speak 5 languages pretty fluently, at least conversationally.
Sure.
in most parts of Europe. You go to the East Coast, the average person speaks 2 to 3 languages. So if they're hired, do they get this extra allocation in their salary, or is it only when they use it?
So the way the current policy is that they have to be a front-facing position, and they have to be using the bilingual both languages regularly. So it wouldn't just be once in a while that they would use that. But we don't advertise positions with the requirement of Spanish, let's say as an example. So it's a preference. So when we hire staff, they're not tested for that at time of hire because it's not a requirement. But that's where this bilingual stipend came in, is if they are in a position which they're addressing the public and the public have the need for that language, if they can provide that, then they would receive the stipend.
So is that something that you as HR director would say, okay, for this position, we need somebody that speaks Ukrainian, and we need someone that speaks Spanish, and we need somebody that speaks Russian? Is that how it works?
We do, well, so I should add that the city does have a language line access as well. So if it is a language that is not coming up every day or specialty, the language line can be used for that interpretation service. In looking, the student intern that looked at this was primarily looking at Spanish because of those are the larger demographics within our area. So that's where you're seeing this focus. But we do have the language line. So if there are needs, certainly that can be utilized as well.
So if we're doing that, does that then set a precedent for us as a city that we have to provide linguists that in, let's say, 8 different languages?
Well, that's where the language line would come in if that was necessary. If we don't have someone that could speak that language, we would utilize the language line.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's actually state law surrounding some of that, but some of it has to do with population demographics. Councilmember Martinez?
Shannon, can you repeat the amount of money or increase in expenses? Because what I'm reading and what I thought I heard you say were different.
Right. So the fiscal consideration is the present stipend cost for the unrepresented, and then the represented groups that already get it is $34,571.20. Expanding the stipend to this group and applying the 2.7% COLA would increase the annual cost to approximately $37,803.
All right, thank you for the
So
clarification.
that's about a $4,000 increase. Yeah,
I'm sorry, say that again.
$4,000 increase.
Thanks.
And again, the main purpose of this is for consistency among our groups with this benefit.
No surprise. All right, any other questions? If not, I'd accept a motion.
I move to approve AFSCME bilingual policy as presented.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1.
Who was the name?
Moving on to staff reports.
Yeah.
Mr. Farlindsey.
Yeah, if we could have Doug talk about the exhibit, but also Doug, if I can put you on the spot and if you could talk about what you're doing to get the downtown ready for Christmas.
I'm not doing anything personally. So I'll start with what we're doing to get the downtown ready for Christmas. Well, first off, we planted a bunch of new trees. We worked with City Manager Carl Lindsay. We've got, I think now we're at 59 total trees that were planted as of the beginning of this week, and we've just got another 22 on the truck in. I believe most of those are in today, but I don't want to speak to that. I did see the guys out there this morning planting a tree right up front here. that was replacing a dead, mostly dead tree that was not going to survive. So we've gone through. I did manage to make sure that in front of Skog Brothers Glass there is a elm tree. Just letting you know that. But so the beautification has started with the trees. We, working with our wonderful Public Works Department, are looking at putting the Christmas lights back onto the fill this year. I believe we're going to be starting that process either Friday, and if not Friday, it will be early next week, Monday and Tuesday. Tuesday is the scheduled day, so those of you that drive across the fill, Tuesday is the scheduled day. We will have the lift truck out there. That has been posted already, so we should have that on our social medias already. But those lights will be going up. But I'm going to tell you that they will not be turned on right away. We are going to wait until the tree lighting day, which is a week from Friday on the 21st. So that's all going to happen and coincide with that. We are going to wait until the tree lighting is completed, and then we will light the lights probably the next day, or we'll put them on a timer to light that night. I know Downtown Moses Lake Association has not only got their wreaths going and they're getting ready to put those up, but they have now snowflakes that they're putting up as well that are lit snowflakes, which are a little bit bigger and brighter. So that'll be nice down Third, and they'll have the banners up as well. And I believe that's next week. I believe that's early next week. We are looking at, I don't know if we can do it or not yet, but there is a large spruce tree in Nepal Park that has power down beneath it. We are looking to see if we can get all the way up it. If we can get all the way up that one, we will light it. If we cannot, we will not. We're not going to put any staff at risk to do something like that, but my understanding is that tree used to be lit, but it got too big. We do have a bucket truck, so we're going to try and get that one lit. If we cannot, we will not. And then we're looking towards next year. We got our request in too late, but we currently have a request into a company for street light mounted LED graphics for the fill as well. They will not be here in time this year. We got the information, I believe we started looking at it in October, and they had sold out in September for this year. So we are looking at that for next year and seeing if we can get those graphics in and how much they cost, but we would put one on each of the light poles across the fill. I believe that's all we're doing right now, but the city staff will also be putting up the Christmas tree at St. Cayuse, and I believe we're doing that tomorrow. So that will be not me, once again, I'm not doing anything, but the parks maintenance crew will be out there putting up and decorating the large tree at St. Cayuse Square, and I believe that's tomorrow. So all of that is happening here in the next little bit. Don't forget that the tree lighting ceremony put on by DMLA is a week from Friday, and that is in the evening. So because obviously lighting the tree at noon would not really be that spectacular. So that's what I have on the prep for the holidays. In front of each of you on your dais is one of these lovely cards. This is the biggest gallery opening we have of the year. This is this Friday. So I've got your Fridays booked for the next 2 weeks, folks. Look at that. But this is the annual members exhibition. They are setting up for it now. The opening gallery, the main gallery opening reception is this Friday from 4 to 7 p.m. The only thing that is an error on this is the no host wine and beer is not happening. The Columbia Basin Allied Arts was our partner, and they failed to get the application in time with the State Liquor Commission to get the permit. So instead, we will be having hot chocolate and apple cider. So come on down for that, view some of the art. That is this Friday from 4 to 7 p.m. There is also a art after hours, and it is a macrame feather. Don't ask me what a macrame feather is. I've not done this project yet, but that is available to anyone who shows up. So come on down. It's got food. I believe there's live music as well. I do not personally know who the artist is, but it is not me. They asked me. They can't afford me. Let's put it that way. Because technically I'm not allowed to accept money in any other ways from the city. So But that is this Friday, 4 to 7 p.m. And it'll be right here in the museum in the main gallery. If you peek through the windows on your way out, you might be able to see some of the art because the art is going up right now. So I'm happy to take any questions on any of those items.
I could turn the time over to Chief Perillo.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This afternoon, CB Tech had a push-in ceremony for the fire engine that was donated by the city of Moses Lake just a few councils ago. And if you're not familiar with what a push-in ceremony is, it's a tribute to the fire service to honor the history of the fire service. It goes back to a time when fire apparatus was pulled by a horse or horses, and then when the crews would return from the call, they would have to detach the horses and push the apparatus back into the station. So to honor that tradition, when a new apparatus is put into service, the fire services across the country perform a push-in ceremony, and that was done this afternoon at CB Tech by the CB Tech students. So it was a good sight to see.
Awesome. Thank you.
And that's all we have.
Okay. Well, then we'll move on to council committee reports, starting with Councilmember Myers.
Nothing to add.
All right, Councilmember Martinez.
I did not attend the opioid abatement council meeting because I was at work, but Liz has now kind of, she's part of the council, although we still need to figure out who's going to be the voting person. I mean, this is something for council to decide. If it's an elected official that still needs to be on the council and be a voting member, or if you're okay with Liz taking over totally. That's actually about it. I do want to say thank you for not taking the 1%, for offering that possibility of not taking a 1% property tax increase. I know Dawn and I were the only ones that voted against a property tax increase last year, even though some people are saying that I did vote for it. But anyway, I am of the mind that we need to stop penalizing people who own property. I'm of the mind that we need to get to cost recovery, and I know that you are working on that. So I really appreciate this budget cycle that you just didn't throw it in there and expect for us to vote for an increase. So I appreciate you listening to us. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Lombardi.
You're not going to Mr. Fancher?
Okay, Mr. Fancher.
Where we go?
I mean, hey, I
don't have much to say other than the Grant County Economic Development Council just had their lead summit that I think you all got an opportunity to attend. I think it was a success. I think it's just the beginning, and probably the best part about the whole deal was, in a few meetings lately, is the collaboration that's going on in the county right now. Top notch.
Thank you, Mark. Do you mind if I go to you now?
Okay.
All right, thanks.
So I wanted to give a special thank you, start off, to Senator Judy Warnick. I don't think enough citizens know that she and her family are the one that provides the tree each year from the tree farm. And a couple of years ago, I had a number of citizens ask, could we get a bigger tree? And I approached Judy and she said, sure, as long as you can bring it back. So for the last few years, Grant County Commissioner Kevin Burgess and I have been going on our annual pilgrimage to pick out the tree in Meade, Washington. And this year it was awfully big. And so we're hoping it fills out nicely as it goes up tomorrow. But again, a special thank you to Judy for doing that. And also to Grant County Commissioner Kevin Burgess for assisting him in going out there. It's like an annual pilgrimage now. The Port of Moses Lake signed a MOU with Irrigation District on the W20 canal to get that potential water solution in place. And the estimate that the consultant has for the water is 50,000 acre feet. So that will provide us with a lot of water for a lot of years if it all comes through. The plan is to run the water through Moses Lake, which will limit the phosphorus as well, which of course causes the algae here. And so fresh water, rolling water helps a lot. This would be, assuming it goes forward, it would be a two-step process. The first section would be $20 million. So it's a very interesting project. They're going to Washington, D.C. to talk to the federal legislators about grants and processes and easements and kind of get the ball started. Directly at the port, the executive director, Dan Roach, has been working with some of our powerhouse industries like General Dynamics, Stokes Aerospace, and Moses Lake Industries on expansion plans. So again, more high-paying jobs that are on the future and the horizon for the city of Moses Lake. And we should also potentially see some port release statements, possibly at the end of the year, most likely probably end of January, on letter of intents with partners in both the gas area and also SMR. So this is really, we're in the cradle stage right now, if you will, of the new wave of high tech in energy that's coming to Moses Lake. And special thanks to fellow LTAC member Richard Hanover, who's been really knocking it out of the park, meeting with these companies, getting things signed up. We may have to, in another 4 or 5 years, have a statue for him. That's how much work is being done right now. And as far as the municipal airport, everything is status quo. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Victor. Councilmember Skog. All right. I also attended the LEAD Summit, and we did have a water meeting after the second day of the meetings, and that was rather enlightening. One of the projects that was discussed was the W20 project, and then there was another project brought up, which was a pipeline from the Columbia River, which could serve multiple locations in the county, not only Moses Lake. So that's another promising solution. And we are, of course, continuing to look at other solutions that might be able to serve Moses Lake. So all very promising things. And I'll echo what Mr. Fancher had to say, that, you know, most promising of the whole thing is the amount of collaboration. I think in years past, there haven't been nearly as many good relationships that have developed amongst the different bodies of elected officials, being the Port of Moses Lake, PUD, Grant County, the Health District, and all of the above. So very, very promising, and I'm very, very much looking forward to the next year as some of these ideas actually begin to take form. I think we talked about transportation as well, amongst other things. So a lot of exciting things happening. And then on Friday, I think it was, I was able to attend the Oxford House open house up on Nelson Road. A few fun facts for you. There are currently 60 beds available in Moses Lake through Oxford Homes. They do now have a women's home set up. So that's really exciting. For those of you who don't know, Oxford Group helps people suffering from substance abuse. So all of the residents are sober and clean. They attend recovery meetings twice a week, or church twice a week. They're all seeking employment. So these are all the things we were really, as a council, I think, looking for to help people in need, and not so much just the housing portion, but providing those wraparound services was what we like to call that. And at the Oxford House, the great thing is it's all peer-to-peer. So it's people who have been in the situation before helping people who are in the situation or getting out of the situation, right? So just really, really uplifting experience. And you know, if you're have any trepidation about them being in your neighborhood, I would say, you know, that's probably unfounded or unwarranted because they're upstanding citizens and they do not actually tolerate much in the way of bad behavior. So again, all really promising things, and I'm really excited about that. With all that said, I think, oh, sorry, Judy, did I forget you?
You're gonna be in big trouble.
Well, I know you. It's been one of those months, Judy. All right, Deputy Mayor Magwell.
You forgot me last time.
Did I really?
Yes, you did.
Well, I just talked to you so much. I think
She
I've
gets
heard it.
twice as much time now.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, I don't have anything. Thank
Oh
you.
my Lord. I love it. All right. The next meeting will. Oh, we good? Sorry, we have a special meeting November the 18th. Will you remind me what that is for, sir?
It's the joint meeting with the PUD commissioners.
Speaking of, all right.
Yep, and then we also, I think we still want to talk water. Yeah, we need to talk water rates too.
Perfect. Okay. And then our next regular meeting is here, November the 25th at 6:30, I believe. And then we have one December the 9th. And that will conclude our regular meetings for the year. So, all right, I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 8:40.